This week is all about getting prepared to move into our new high desert homestead. So we have got a lot of things that have just been thrown into this garage and into this rental. When we moved here, I didn't want to put a lot of effort into organizing and creating places for things to go because I thought we were just going to be leaving soon. I just haven't been very motivated to organize it. And one thing that I really don't want to do is spend hours upon hours upon hours organizing our stuff, purchasing bins, getting rugs, getting drawer organizers when we move into our house. I want to have all of those things ready and to go so that when we move in, we can just put things in their place and be able to just focus all of our attention on getting the garden ready for the season. So we were told end of April, beginning of May is when we'll be able to move into our house and get started on our homestead. So one thing that I did this week was we headed over to the house, the kids and I, we brought the measuring tape, clipboards, and we measured the size of drawers, how wide and how deep they were, the cupboards. So we spent some time at the house measuring all of these things so that I can go ahead and just order online things that I know will fit into our drawers. Yep. Do you need help getting in?
Yeah.
Things that I want to get measured are the entryway. I want to put a entryway rug there. I also might put like a bench or a table for us to sit down. I want to measure the living space where we think our couches will go so that we know how big of a rug to get, and a rug for the kitchen back here. I also want to measure the different shelving in our bedrooms and bathrooms so that I can just get organizers already purchased to put inside the drawers to work with. I know I'm probably just going to order a ton of things that I know that will fit inside the drawers, and then we can unload and unpack and then use things as we need them, and then we can return whatever we don't use. So I'm just hoping that we can have all the supplies ready when we get in here so that the moving and process will be a lot smoother.
1B. It is.
So that's 12 feet, 4 feet. So we have entryway. 4 times in 8 years, so I feel like I know the moving process and I know how I can keep it and make it run smoothly. So that's going to be the goal for this move. I'm walking out to our garden area to see if the ground is still so muddy. It's pretty dry right now. Here's the main road, and then along here you can get to the back of our property without having to drive through the ditch. I really want to drive our car through there to be able to bring some supplies to start some garden beds. Last week, I said that we probably wouldn't start anything, but I'm thinking, you know, there's a few things that we can plant within the next month or so. I'm thinking we can start setting up some of our garden beds near the back of the garden, which is, you know, right about here. And then just put some like sticks up around it to show that we're working there. And honestly, that'll still give them like 20 feet to 50 feet to grade around, actually more like 75 feet to grade around the house. I think we can safely start on those garden beds. So I think we'll come back after lunch, after we just measured. I think we'll come back after lunch and probably get started on a few rows and maybe even plant one of the grape plants. If you remember, I bought 3 varieties of grapes, and one of the varieties is a seeded grape and the other 2 are seedless grapes. And I just learned that if those are planted too close together, that the seedless grapes might start to develop tiny seeds inside. So it said you could plant them up to 75 feet apart, and that would prevent that from happening. So I think I'm gonna plant my seeded grapes at the very, very, very back of our garden, and then the other grapes near where our fruit trees are gonna be. The kids are really excited to get that started with me as well. So I had another package delivered to my friend's house, and it is some seed potatoes for Yukon Gold. So we'll be getting these in the ground probably in the next month or so. So this is somewhat hilarious. We just had to go re-pick the color of our house because the exterior color of our house, because something wasn't gonna work with the color that we chose. So now
the stucco texture.
Yeah, I guess
they couldn't mix that color with the certain stucco texture that they had.
right. So we've now had to re-choose the stain color for our kitchen island and hood box. We've had to re-choose the flooring color. I just remembered. So it was the backsplash color we had to re-pick, and the stain of the island and the hood box, and now the color of the exterior of our home. All three of those things we've had to re-choose since when we first picked all the things for our house. We're gonna see if we can drive up into our backyard so that make it easier to bring all of our supplies back there. We do have to get over this, but it looks like some people have driven over it recently. And it's dry, right? Does that?
I think so.
Otherwise we are not getting out of here. We could really use a four-wheel drive vehicle right now. But I think we're gonna be okay. Made it. And we have all of our tools and baby supplies and water. This is what it looks like when you have just a van and a bunch of car seats. We're gonna work in this back section to try to stay away from the house too much. I don't want them to smash our plants. So our garden rows are going to be about 50 feet wide. Well, probably more like 45 feet, because I want to leave some space at the edge of our property because I want to build a tunnel, a chicken tunnel. We'll talk more about that in the future, but so that I can just throw garden scraps to the chickens no matter where I am in the garden. But that's what we're gonna work on today. I just want to get a few garden beds prepared and at least some cover crops growing so that we can try to improve this soil. So I might just put the grape plant closer to this side. I think this plant could get up to like 15 feet long, or we might trellis it to grow in two ways out. So we'll start with this back row we don't need to do a lot to get the grapes ready. It just really needs like one spot of good soil. We'll just see what we can get done in these few hours that we have. Starting a garden from scratch is always a little bit scary because you never know how the plants are going to react to the ground, to the weather that occurs. But I don't want that to keep me from planting things. So we are going full force with planting all the things that we want to have on our homestead, and we will just see what takes and what doesn't. Just planted our first ever plant on our brand new homestead. Grapes, Concord grapes. Hopefully this little guy makes it and doesn't get forgotten. It's just this tiny little stick out of the ground. So now to organize some garden rows. We're using the broad fork to measure how wide our rows are gonna be. We purchased the 30-inch broad fork, and that's because I want to be able to go down the entire row and loosen up the soil with the broad fork without having to do multiple times down the row. The way that we are setting up our garden beds is to have each bed be 30 inches like I mentioned before, and in between each row I want 2 feet for a aisle in between each row. And so we're going to dig that aisle space down a little bit and pile the dirt onto our garden beds to raise those up to prevent any type of flooding and just to be able to distinguish between the garden row and the aisle. I know that there are machines that can do this. We might try to ask around if anyone we know has one and to quicken the process, but it's pretty pricey for just this one task, and we won't have to do this very often, so we might just do it by hand, just do a row here and there whenever we can get it in. I will be going in the no-till route for our gardens, and so I'm using this broad fork to loosen the soil in order to protect the microorganisms that are living in the soil, but still be able to loosen it up and provide a good growing environment for the garden plants. We're back again another day. It's like after dinner, so we only have about an hour maybe of sunlight. I just want to get at least one of these rows planted with the cover crop that I have. I don't have very much of it. It's just left over from last year, so, but I just want to get that in the ground. It's supposed to rain/snow tomorrow and the next few days, so that'll keep the ground at least watered for these. Cover crops are used to improve your soil with whatever nutrients you want. Different varieties of cover crops will improve your soil in different ways. You plant them usually in the fall, and then they will grow throughout the fall and then go dormant over winter and then start growing again in the spring. And then before you're ready to plant your crops, your actual garden crops, you will mix the cover crop into the soil. As it decomposes, it improves the nutrients in your soil, and it also loosens up your soil. So that's what I'm aiming to do here.
Mommy? Oh yeah, you could walk through this.
Yep, this is the row or the aisle.
You can't walk in this, but you can walk in this.
It's starting to sprinkle a little bit. I planted all the cover crop in this row, and I still have a little bit extra. I might have enough for at least one more row if I plant it right. So I think we might try to get in another garden bed. We'll see. If it starts pouring rain, we'll just have to go. Because we don't have access to water quite yet, I am bringing water to our garden whenever we come. So planting the cover crops right now might be a risk because I might not be able to get out frequently enough to keep them watered, but we'll just see what happens. So it started coming down on us. We started broad forking our second row, and then it started coming down pretty hard. So we quickly threw all of our supplies back in the van, and we're gonna head home. I was hoping to get a few more rows done, but we did what we can. And I just hope that the next few snowstorms and rainstorms aren't gonna be too much to where our whole yard turns into a huge mud pit again and we can't work back here. So I'm really hoping it's just a little bit of rain or snow so that we can come back and finish our rows. In other news, we saw that they had put the stone on the house, so that was exciting. It doesn't quite look like the color that I remember picking out. So hopefully it all looks good with the color change of the house and the different color stone. Well, hopefully when it all comes together, it looks somewhat decent. So many exciting things ahead, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys want to watch the video where we decided where we were going to put the garden in our backyard, go ahead and click here.